Marhaba, everyone, and welcome to Everything Philosophy. If you don't know who I am, my name is Dr. Sam, and I am passionate about helping you think more clearly and deeply about the topics that matter to you. So make sure you subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell so that you are never late for class. I think it's really easy to look around these days and just think, wow, people really don't think. And in fact, for me, it's almost like irresistible to resist the thought that people are just getting more and more stupid by the day. uh, but if I force myself to pause and I actually reflect on the issue, I don't think the problem is that people don't think. I think the problem is that people think badly and do not know it. And if we really force ourselves to be intellectually humble, sometimes that includes you and sometimes it includes me. And so today what I want to talk about is why smart people, even very smart people, sometimes believe dumb things. Once you understand what gets in the way of good reasoning, you are in a position to recognize it, stop it, and do better. All right, reason number one is that we often start with conclusions. Most people think reasoning works like this. First, you look at the evidence, and then you form your belief. But in reality, it is often the opposite. We often start with the belief, and then we go look for reasons that support that belief. Now, part of the reason we do this is something called the self-enhancement bias. The self-enhancement bias points out the very natural disposition that we have to want to think of ourselves as smart, as rational, or as right or correct about a particular subject matter. So when we already believe something, we are very internally motivated to defend it. What I find really interesting about being wrong or incorrect is that it doesn't just feel icky sometimes. Depending on the beliefs that are being challenged, especially if those are beliefs that are core to who you are, being wrong about something can feel like a threat to who we are as people. So here's a kind of mundane example. Take the keto diet. Suppose that someone decides keto works, and then suddenly, surprise, every anecdote, every study, every article that they read, all of the things that they see on social media support keto. And then anything that contradicts it is either ignored, dismissed, or explained away. You see this a lot with religion too, right? So people don't normally start with the evidence and then form the belief, say, in the existence of God. They usually start with the belief and then they look for reasons to support that belief. And this sort of approach of doing things, I would argue, doesn't even constitute a form of reasoning. What I would call it is searching for justification. And just to be clear, I don't think people are out there forming their beliefs this way intentionally. I think it is a very unintentional way of belief formation, but one that is very natural and one that we are very predisposed to engaging in nonetheless. All right, reason number two, emotions drive reasoning. If something feels true, we often assume it is. Think about what it feels like when someone criticizes something that you care about, whether that's your job, your hobbies, something about your lifestyle, your religious beliefs, your non-religious beliefs, whatever it is. If someone criticizes those things, you recoil, right? We have this very visceral reaction to someone saying something negative, and not just negative, but potentially challenging something that's of value to us. And so because of this very strong, immediate, visceral reaction we have to the criticism, we don't ask first, is that true? Do they have a point? Our very first reaction is to go, whatever they said, it's wrong, because it feels wrong. Or think about a more subtle case that doesn't involve like a very deep-seated belief about who we are. Think about what it's like to read a headline that makes you angry. When you see a headline that makes you angry or feel some type of emotion, my bet is before you even click to read the article to look at the evidence and figure out if the headline is true, you already have accepted it. I am especially guilty of this when it comes to headlines that say something about an ingredient being toxic. I have some very strong beliefs about how poor our food system is, our being the United States food system. And so if I see a headline about some ingredient being toxic, like my immediate thought is just, yep, that's true. Like before I even click on the article or even go to look in the evidence, it just reinforces my background belief about how poor our food system is. And I think, yep, sounds about right. Another harmful chemical that is being leached into our food. So I actually want you guys to pause and think about this question for yourself. What kind of claim are you most likely to believe too quickly because it already fits with your background beliefs? So in other words, what's the topic where your brain goes, yep, that sounds about right, before you've actually gone and checked the evidence for the claim in question? Is it about food? Is it about politics? Is it about dating? Could it be about money or parenting styles? Think about it and let me know in the comments. I really want to hear. And be honest. This is a self-awareness exercise. No one here is on trial, and we are all trying to do better together here on this channel. All right, that brings us to reason number 3. Beliefs are social. Now, this reason actually has nothing to do with truth. It has to do with people. Our beliefs aren't just about what's true. They very much are often about where we belong. This isn't always true, but people do tend to share the beliefs of their close friends, their family members, and the communities they find themselves in. And here's the crutch of the issue. If everyone around you believes something, then it starts to feel obvious. And the reason it feels obvious isn't because it is obvious. It is because no one around you is questioning it. And because of this, that can make being open, genuinely open to new evidence or to challenges in your belief feel incredibly fucking scary. When changing our mind about something could feel like losing our place in a group that is very important to us, that can make us naturally inclined not to do it, even if that's what good reasoning requires. I actually have a very, very personal example of this. I got married at 20. Do not recommend to anyone, but I got married at 20 while I was still an undergraduate at FSU. And I changed my major a bunch of times trying to figure out what my passion was, what I really loved studying, what I wanted to do in life. And I changed my major. I got married in my sophomore year, and I changed my major to philosophy in my junior year. My now ex-husband and I were in a fight about something. And in the midst of that fight, he stopped and he said to me, I really regret the day you started studying philosophy because that was the day you started to change. And two things hit me in that moment after he said those words. The first was that my marriage was over. And the second was that I wanted to go to grad school and get my PhD in philosophy and become a professor. And so it was a really pivotal shift in my life. And all this is to say is I know what it's like to lose people, to lose family, and to lose friends because of changes in the way I think and believe. And it isn't easy, but at least in my experience, I can't speak for everyone, but it has always, always been worth it. So now thinking about these 3 reasons together, that we often start with conclusions, that our emotions guide what feels true, and then the third, that our social world reinforces what we think is true. Now you can sort of see that the problem is not that people do not think. The problem is that thinking is not enough. What you need, if you want to reason well, is a method for testing your beliefs instead of protecting them. And that's exactly where philosophy comes in. So what we're going to do in the next episode is look at one of the most common reasoning mistakes that people make It is a fallacy. I'm not going to tell you which fallacy it is. You'll have to tune in next week to find out. But that is all for today. You are free. And remember, don't just have an opinion, have an argument. Class dismissed.